Their bridgehead across and are probing deeper and deeper into the fatherland. And here we can see a convoy, 29th Division. These are the guys who landed on Omaha. And not all of the GIs in the back of that truck, that GNC you can see there, are going to be veterans of Omaha. A lot are going to be replacement. Well, the very nature of the casualty list they racked up. Here they come with some light armor support. We've got an M5 light tank, and we've also got a Chaffee. Now the Chaffee, you'll notice, is painted up in British colours, which suggests that it's part of the 7th Armoured Division who used the Chaffee as one of their reconnaissance vehicles, and it looks likely that they've joined up with the 29th here to add a little bit of muscle to this particular branch of the sort of probing hand, if you like, that's moving in towards the centre of the fatherland. Now, everybody realises, hello, what's this? Some fire coming down. It looks as if, yes, that was a Panzerfaust. The Americans have run into a small group of Germans, an ad hoc group pulled together. They don't fire now, they're trying to damage that 29th convoy. And it's a pretty desperate stand from the Germans. I'm looking at them, they look like a small group of anti-grenadiers. They're outnumbered, they're outgunned at the moment, they're determined to hold that position. The American light tanks are flanking, they then fire, they're snapping them stuff away. And they're fired. It's only a matter of time before the Germans have to pull back. Well, I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, this will not be a rout, this will be a calculated withdrawal. They know this land, this is their land, they've spied this out already, they know where they're going to withdraw to. No panic here. Many of the Allies, British and American, simply could not understand why the Germans just didn't give up. The war was over. Why are they still fighting? Why are people still dying? Now here to the 29th, they're putting in an infantry attack. We've got some smoke. We put that in to mark the position of the friendly infantry. This is to avoid any problems with friendly fire. Tanks, we have to know where the tanks are. Alright, they're getting some more fire out. It looks like that's it. Yeah, the Panzer Grenadiers have decided. That's expressed the better part of valor there. Bogging out of their position. They are not giving them easily, these guys. The Americans seize position. And they're happy at the moment, at least, just to dislodge the Germans, to move them away from their prepared position.
Yeah.
Notice this, look, the Germans are moving, covering and moving. The Chaffee's starting, the Chaffee's crossing the line. These Kampfgruppe were basically ad hoc units. They were thrown together from whatever there was available. These guys are Panzer Grenadiers. They might have been Hitler Youth. They might have been an anti-aircraft battery pressing its 88s into anti-tank role. They may even have been people like Luftwaffe police. It was an ad hoc arrangement, but it worked remarkably well. And they were holding as best they could. They were making the Allies pay in blood for every metre of the fatherland that they took. And there were various reasons for that. Hitler had maintained this myth that somehow he could force the Western Allies to the negotiating table, and that then they, with the remains of the Wehrmacht, would turn east to defeat the real enemy, the Soviet Union. But I suspect we can see now one of the reasons why this particular Panzergruppe Panzergruppe Kampfgruppe, was so resilient because they know that they have armour support. Here it comes. Again, it's a mixed unit. So we've got SDKFZ-222 light armoured car, first used in North Africa. You'll see photographs of Roland standing at the top of one of these, doing all the groups. We've got Tiger 2, a pink tiger, burning tiger, and backing up is an SDKFZ handbag 251 armoured personnel carrier. And my goodness, that is going to rattle the Germans. They will have had one eye on the sky. They will have one on the sky throughout this engagement because the one I think the Allies have got is total air superiority. Now, they're lucky today. They are very lucky. That is Type 19 Spitfire. It's a photo reconnaissance aircraft. He's coming around again for another look. Here he comes. Hear that griffin roar, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that he hasn't engaged has emboldened the Germans a little bit. Had he been, should we say, a fighting Spitfire, the heaviest weapons he would have had would be a couple of 20mm cannons. Give away, come back with some typhoons. That's a good shot. He can't do anything. He could have shot up the light armoured car had he had 20mm cannons, he hasn't got. He's completely unarmed. He could not have affected this enormous King Tiger. But it's fear of Allied air superiority which haunts the Germans. Hence, you'll notice the camouflage on the lighter armoured vehicles. That's primarily to protect them from above. The German soldiers, the Wehrmacht, had a rather dark, ironic little joke they would tell each other. If you look up in the sky and you see an aeroplane and it's brown, it's a British aeroplane. If you look up in the sky and you see an aeroplane and it's silver, it's an American aeroplane. If you look up in the sky and you see an aeroplane and it's not there, it's a German aeroplane. So they had this very kind of ironic view. But from their point of view, it meant that they were in constant threat from these, not so much the reconnaissance Spitfire gave them a fright, but it was unable to engage them. They were more concerned about the J-bows, the Jaeger bombers, the fighter bombers, the British Typhoons, the American Thunderbolts. A British Typhoon pilot wrote in his memoirs that under his wings he had the same firepower as a broadside of a light cruiser. So even our King Tiger tank here would be severely rattled by that kind of firepower. Now there's nothing much that the American light armour can do against that Tiger. In fact, you'll notice they're taking cover. They will be very brave to show themselves. And they can engage the 222 on those 20mm cannons. They can engage the 222 back there. these are Americans, they're going to be wanting thunderbolts. Got some thunderbolts up here quickly. So for the moment, the American advance has been halted. Now why don't these young Germans simply give in? Why don't they just accept what's going on? Well, there are a variety of reasons. Some of them might be the advance, but the 29th aren't giving up. They didn't give up on Omaha Beach. They didn't give up in the battle of the hedgerows with Bocage, the siege of Cherbourg, Mortain. They fought their way through Normandy, and now they're fighting their way into Germany. As I said, some of these young guys here are going to be replacements. Some of them will carry the memory of that campaign with them. They are not going to be very forgiving when it comes to taking prisoners at this stage of the war, I suspect. King Tiger's moving into a position where he can dominate the battlefield. Basically, we're going to need some kind of armour support to come in if the 29th are going to make a successful attack and break this little bit of stalemate. There we are, the Panzer Grenadiers are debussing, as we say today, from their 251. I was right in my assumption they were Panzer Grenadiers. They've got more sophisticated uniforms, they've got the camouflage smock of the Panzer Grenadiers, but in particular, they've got armoured transport. Most Wehrmacht soldiers wore the kind of 19th century field grey uniform that the standard German soldier did, and they walked into combat. These guys are the elite. They're not going to give up. 29 going to dominate them now. Here they go. Not a giveaway. A couple of Germans here are using the M40 submachine pistol. That was not as widely available to the standard Wehrmacht soldier at this stage of the war as it would have been. I can see at least one Russian soldier in there as well, being looted with the eastern front. 29, they've got far more automatic firepower here. They've got Thompsons, they've got a BAR, brand new automatic rifle. And the idea is to lay down as much fire as you can. Now you'll notice part of the 29th have broken off. The Americans have this maxim. Find them, fix them, flank them, finish them. Well, they found them, or are they blundered into them? Now the task is to fix them until such a time as they can flank the German position. And then, with a bit of luck, they can finish them. But I suspect they're going to need some heavy support in order to deal with that German armour there. Now the Panzer Grenadiers, they realise being flanked. They're withdrawing again. These guys are not panicking. This is not a rout. They know their ground. They know there's a village down here which they can occupy. The buildings are very difficult to clear.
Yeah, I'll wait for this rapid fire.
There we go. We've got the 222 firing on. What looks like heavy support is there for A1 going in Sherman. Now that in and of itself isn't going to change the game too much. We have got here we are, an M4 A276. That high velocity 76 mm gun has more of a chance against the armour of the King Tiger as not really spot. I've got a feeling that we have to do this without the intervention of the J-bows, the fighter bombers. A lot of fire going down now. 222's moving. That can hurt these TIs in the open. They need to be careful. One of it is to become a bit of a standoff with the other serious firefight within the infantry. That's a good lead. Not giving up. Big Tiger's tracking the WW2. Just not wanting around for that long again, that will anything you have to go. Just like any viable way. Now I can see, yes, light allied armour's coming in, and its support. So the King Tiger is being bracketed now. We've got 2 Germans, we've got a couple of 75 on the tracking, we've got 57, and 4. A lot is going to depend on whether or not the Americans can gain dominance on this battlefield. It's still an even balance. There is a slender chance through on that King Tiger are inexperienced. By this stage of the war, a lot of the experienced tankies, the guys who've gone in front, the guys who've gone in hello! Right, they're bracketing my goodness! King Tiger's been hit in every direction. May not have been brewed. 2.1's been brewed. It may not have been brewed, but that crew is going to be at best severely rattled, but worse. Fire. 29 for that. Fire's got the village. This is it. Coming into the base. Some machine guns. And there we are, ladies and gentlemen. The Master Grenadiers at last decided that this is an impossible battle to win. There's a white flag being shown there. Again, we have coloured smoke being laid down to mark the position of friendly forces. That could well have added to the lack of morale or the collapse of the morale of the Panzer Grenadiers. They may well have thought that smoke was to mark them as a target for aerial attack. So one way or another, they've decided now is the time to give in. They'll be searched for any useful intel and then shipped backwards to a holding cage back behind the Allied lines. Some of those young Germans will be resentful. There's evidence that some of them, for instance, refused to accept medical assistance when they were captured, believing that they were going to be poisoned, for instance, by the Allies. Others will be just grateful that it's all over.